Hi Year 6, I'm here for another art lesson and I'm feeling quite excited about it today. Last week we drew some plants which was absolutely brilliant, and we've taken our inspiration from Margaret Mee and we've taken our inspiration from Sir Joseph Banks, and now we're going to take some inspiration from Charles Darwin himself. So I know that you've been learning lots about that. And one of the things that got me quite interested about it was Charles Darwin's visit to the Galapagos Islands. Now, he investigated a lot of things on his travels, but one of the things that he's most famous for is something that has come to be known as the Galapagos Finches. Now, finch is a type of bird, and Charles Darwin actually drew these pictures, look, there we go, and they are the Galapagos Finches. And what he thought was, he did some investigating and he watched these birds, and his grandfather had already kind of instilled in him this concept that things evolve. They don't necessarily just come from nowhere. But as he watched these finches and really looked closely at them and drew them, he noticed that their beaks were quite different. And this kind of solidified this idea in him that that creatures and living things adapt and change depending on a few different things. So I've got a more simplified drawing, look, of some of the finches, and what he kind of concluded was that the beaks changed on these finches, and they had changed over time depending on the kind of food that they needed to eat or that they ate. So there was a warbler finch, which had a small beak, a slender beak for catching small insects that might have been on a wing. There was a vegetarian tree finch, which has got like a kind of curved parrot-like beak for crushing nuts. An insect-eating tree finch, which again had a curved beak. A woodpecker finch, which had a strong beak that could pick up sticks to poke into trees to find insects. A cactus ground finch, a long straight beak for getting nectar out of cactus flowers. And a large ground finch, which had quite a blunt beak for crushing seeds. And you can see on Charles Darwin's drawings the attention to detail that is put into the different shapes of these beaks. Now, we probably don't think that these birds were actual finches as we know them today. That's what they came to be known as for him, and that really solidified his idea of evolution, that creatures change and adapt, when he looked at these beaks. So I thought we might do some art today, and that we would draw a bird and perhaps a finch that you might even recognise. And we've got lots of finches that are around. A common one is called a chaffinch. There's a grey finch. And this one here that I've chosen is a goldfinch. And that's what the goldfinch looks like. And I think they're really beautiful birds. And I sometimes, if I'm lucky, I sometimes get these in my garden. In fact, I had a couple of them dancing and flying around together. And this is a goldfinch. So we're going to take a bit of inspiration from Charles Darwin's finches today, and we're going to use some of our shading skills that we learned last week, and we're going to try and draw a bird. So what you'll need to do is get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil. As I said last week, I'm just using a HB pencil. So I'm going to do the different textures and the different shades based on how hard I press with my pencil and how lightly I do things, just to change the texture and the shading on them. And I'm going to use hatching and cross hatching and proper shading and highlights and things, just to make it look really realistic. But there's a few little tips that I've got for you when we're drawing birds. And I think the best thing for you guys to do would be to just Google a finch of some sort, see which one you want to pick. You might want to pick a chaffinch, you might pick a goldfinch like me. You can do any bird, you can do a robin if you want to, you can do a sparrow or a pigeon. It's completely up to you, but I'm going to go with Charles Darwin and his finches. And if I were you, I would have a look on the internet and get a photograph of one. You can go in your garden and do this if you want to, but it's very doubtful that the bird would stay still long enough for you to actually be able to draw it. So I've got a photo off the internet and I've printed it off. You don't need to print it off if you don't want to. You could just have it on your screen and you can try and copy it as you see it on your screen, or even in a book. You know, have a look in a book if you've got something with pictures of birds in it in a book, then you can get it from there. So I'm going to do my goldfinch, and here's my tip. Okay, when we're drawing something that's quite complicated like this, you need to look at it with much simpler shapes. So you'll see here, the head is actually, if we're simplifying it, is just a small circle really. And the body is kind of a bigger oval shape. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to draw really lightly because I'm going to go over this with my pencil. I'm going to draw my circle as best I see it, which is the kind of head. And then that kind of body shape that is kind of just like a bit of an oval really. Quite simple. It kind of looks a bit like a snowman on its side, look, doesn't it? And you can see that the shapes are kind of in proportion to each other, except I need to add the tail on. I need to add the beak, and I need to make sure I've got the eye in the right place. And as you can see from my picture, the eye is closer to the beak. It's not in the middle of its head, it's closer to its beak. So I'm going to just try and, maybe I might even do a couple of little lines as a bit of a cross section there, like this, to get the eye in the perfect place. And of course that's just a small circle to start with. Then I'm going to add, let me see, I'm going to add the shape of the tail onto the end there, and I'm going to just curve the body round a bit to make the shape of the tail. So there's my tail. It's looking a bit like a mermaid at the moment, and there's the eye in the middle. And because I've drawn this line there, I know kind of how to line the beak up as well. So I'm going to do the beak. Now this one has got quite a small but fairly pointy beak. And I wonder what that tells us, what kind of things it eats. I should imagine it eats insects and worms of some sort. So there's my beak. And then I'm going to just draw the legs on as well. And it's interesting, I can line the legs up because if I see this as a really simple oval, at the bottom of my oval I can see where the legs come on. So I'm going to add the legs at the angle that they are at. And in fact, this bird is sitting on a branch as well, so I'm going to bring the branch down so that I can make its feet sit perfectly on the branch. And then the other leg is at a bit more of an angle, and its claws kind of grasp around the branch. Now you'll see that I've not added too much detail at this point. I've just kind of done the simplest shapes that I can see them, because now I've got the main shape. Oh no, I'm just going to add the wing, the shape of the wing as well. So that kind of comes up from where the neck is, and I can see that it leads right down and joins the tail. There it is. So that's the kind of where the wing bit goes, this line here. You can see all those simple shapes, and then we're going to start adding the detail. Okay, and this is the fun bit. This is the bit that I love. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly because I'm showing you it, but I think that you could spend quite a long time doing this. And one of the first things that we can focus on is the eye. And you can get quite a lot of detail in an eye. And don't forget the highlights and the shading around the eye. So I'm going to do quite a dark outline. I'm going to just bring it more into that sort of eye shape from the side, so it's not just a circle anymore. And I can see on my picture, I'm just constantly checking back to my picture, I can see a little highlight in there, and then the rest of the eye is very, very dark. There. Can you see how I've left that little highlight there? And that highlight is really important. That's the thing that makes it look really realistic. And on my goldfinch, there's a bit of black that goes towards the beak. So I'm just gonna hatch that actually, just doing individual lines. Can you hear the sound it makes as I hatch that bit? And just make the line of the beak just a bit clearer, so it's not quite as fuzzy as it was, and a bit more hatching underneath. Okay, starting to look realistic. Now I can see on my photograph, I can actually see here the texture of the red feathers on his head. So I'm going to add that texture, and to be honest, I might even do that with a bit of, that's going to be hatching again, but I might even add a bit of a cross hatch into there and just go back over it in the other direction, just to give it that extra bit of texture. And then the red comes around the eye, and there's my texture coming on with my cross hatching, and then another bit of red around the beak, hatch it, cross hatch it. Okay, I'm going to use my rubber now, because I'm going to rub out that line that I did before, and I'm going to rub out the edge of where my circle was. Look, so you can just see how the neck here is going to come across here. I'm just going to smooth that line out instead of leaving it like the snowman looking thing. I'm going to smooth that out just like it is on the picture of my bird, as you can see. Just change that bit there, just to smoothen it out a bit. And then I've got quite a section of black feathers that are almost like zigzags. I'm just going to shade them. I'm going to press on as hard as I can, because I know that it is that it's black. I want it to look like that. I want it to look black. I've done it quite, in a way, I've done it quite sort of haphazardly to try and give the same effect that is on the actual bird. Just add a few little hatches on the head. I'm just going to make that bit around the beak a bit darker again, just to match the other black that I've done. Okay, so can you see how the head is really taking shape? And look at these different textures of pencil that I've got. Really dark shading on the eye, and some cross hatching here, and kind of I've just sort of hatched those in the shape of the feathers kind of thing. And then I'm going to go onto the smoother bit of the bird. So there's this brown bit on the bird, and it's quite a smooth bit, and it just makes a nice little shape. So I'm going to shade that, but I'm not going to do it anywhere near as dark as the other one. There we go. Bit of shading, but not very dark, just to show where the light brown is on my bird. Oops, where the light brown is on the bird. And then I'm going to do this bit around his tummy as well, in the same kind of shading, the same shade. I can't do it any darker, and I can't do it any lighter, because that bit is the same colour. Go around his tummy. In fact, I'm going to leave a little bit on his tummy. I might even use my rubber to add to the highlight a little bit, to make the highlight a bit more obvious, because it actually goes white under his tummy. And then where the wing forms is actually chunk of black again. So comes my dark shading, pressing on as hard as I can to get that darkness. I've got a little bright yellow bit here, which I'm going to leave pretty light. I'll shade it a little bit, but then I'm going to just use my rubber just to add the highlight again. And then the tail, the actual tail, I just think is so pretty. Okay, there's where I'm at so far. And the tail, look at this. Look at these bits of white in there. So I'm going to do the tail. I'm going to shade it as dark as I possibly can. And then I might use my rubber to do the highlight. So I might leave those white bits myself. And then also I'm just going to add under here. Can you see this line here underneath the yellow? It's a bit of a shadow. So I'm going to add that shadow under the wing, just to make it look even more 3D. So I'm going to pop those little white spots on my little goldfinch, and I'm going to add the white. Just going to leave those highlighted bits and then colour the black bit in there, leaving those white bits really clear so that everybody can see the white spots on there. And I might use my rubber as well, just to keep it really light. Okay, so there's that. Can you see how I've done the tail? Now I just need to add a bit more detail onto the feet, which will take me a little bit more time. So I might just leave you to it now. I'm going to add the texture onto the branch as well that the bird is sitting on, and just use my shading techniques to make it look like it's really 3D and it's a real cylinder. Now, you guys have got more time than me, but there you go. That's my goldfinch, inspired by Charles Darwin, and I want you guys to have a go. Find your own bird, print a picture of, have a look at it on the screen, and then I can't wait to see what you can do. Pop it up on Google Classroom, stick it in the stream, pop a photo up or email us a photo, because I'd really like to see what you've done. But happy drawing, enjoy yourselves, see you soon.